I want to say that if people started focusing on their running technique just like they're trying to perfect their snatch or their squat or whatever,
they'd enjoy it more.
They'd enjoy it much more, and it feels better. It feels better. So I think that's a great takeaway, is the fact that running is a skill. It is a skill. You have to try to develop this skill just like you're trying to perfect technique on anything else in weightlifting or anything else.
Bro, I'm so crushed that workout got as good.
Yeah, no, that was good. That was a nice little switch up. Somewhat entertaining.
Well, it's Friday. I'm tired. You're tired. You're not feeling well. So I think it was exactly what we needed to get our cardio in for the week without destroying our hearts and soul.
Yeah, no, definitely. It kept things interesting. It wasn't too repetitive. It wasn't too intense. It was that perfect, moderation of getting the blood flowing, but keeping it interesting.
Sandbag run. What do you think about it?
It's my first time doing it.
Yeah.
I liked it. The sandbag didn't feel too heavy, but it was definitely extra weight than I was normally running with.
25-minute running clock, 9 calories on the Airdyne, 6 lateral burpees over the sandbag, and then pick up the sandbag, take it, and run it 100 meters.
Yeah, no, I like that. What did we get? How many rounds each?
Say 7, 8.
7 or 8.
And that was slow, bro. We were going at a snail's pace.
I had a podcast going.
I had some old school 90s R&B going.
So, who was it? Like little Boys to Men? Casey
Boys to Men
JoJo?
was in there. Mariah Carey jumped in there once. Who else? All For One was up in there.
Okay.
I had some old school ones.
No, it was good, man. It's a good way to get your cardio in and not, get ready to strangle yourself on a treadmill for 30 minutes or a freaking Stairmaster steady pace for 30 minutes.
Well, and I think that most people, when they, outside of a gym like ours, when they think cardio, they traditionally leave it to exactly those two things. You're either running on a treadmill or running outside, or you're on a Stairmaster or an elliptical. And, our program came in and said, hey, there's a more unique way to do this and get better benefits of strength training, bodyweight training as well. And like you said, for us, it keeps us entertained because that's one of the hard things for us to do. I think it's why a lot of people hate doing cardio, because they haven't stepped outside of the box of what that could look like.
Yeah, and it also kind of comes down to the functionality. We're training, functional cardio. I saw, I want to say it's like a meme on Facebook from T Nation, and it was like, if you train conditioning, you are going to be better at life. If you train cardio, you will be better at cardio.
That's really good.
It was training functional cardio is obviously just like any functional training is going to prepare you for stuff outside the gym life. Now, if you just train 30 minutes on the treadmill, you're going to get better at running on the treadmill. You train 30 minutes on the Stairmaster, you're going to get better at training on the Stairmaster.
Yeah, that's really good. And so what we're trying to do when we're training cardio is to, we use these words synonymously, but really we're trying to give ourselves a better capacity at conditioning over long periods of time. And we don't just leave that to running, although we did do that today, and we did get on a bike, but we threw in some burpees in there, and that helped us maintain a level of movement while we ran through this longer piece. And that's where I think we can get a little bit more creative of bringing more like lower intensity, less dynamic movements into conditioning training, and still get the best of two worlds, where we're still getting that cardio, so to speak, but we're still moving the body and giving it an opportunity for strength training as well.
Yeah, you mentioned being creative. I feel like you have to be. You just do one thing for long duration. It's boring. You can kind of fall out of it. It's not, you're not looking forward to doing one specific thing for long, periods of time. If you get creative, and like you said, we threw in the bodyweight movement with the burpees, we threw a sandbag on top. Like, you're adding these different things to kind of keep it fresh, keep it entertaining, and keep that that additional spice to it.
Why do you think people hate doing cardio so much? Where do you think that kind of culture comes from? Like, everyone knows they need it, but they don't do it. Why do you think that is?
It could be a couple of reasons. One, it's hard.
Uh-huh.
You know, some people don't like to get out of breath. Some people freak out when they get out of breath.
That's good.
You know that they start breathing a little bit, harder, and they think, oh shit, the world's about to end. I can't catch my breath. So first and foremost, I'd say it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy, especially if some people feel a little bit lazy. The last thing they want to do is get their heart rate up and get moving when it's a little uncomfortable. What do you think? Why do you think people aren't in such a rush to get into cardio, but they love lifting the weights?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. It's a double-edged sword. I think when it comes to running, I think people hate supplementing that or putting that into conditioning pieces because they don't train it enough. And by not training enough, they suck at the technique. And
then it hurts.
And then it starts to hurt physically as well, not just like the mental hurt, which is like, I don't want to run another mile, right? So there's a psychological, but there's the physical as well. And I think people need to be taught how to run. I think they need to put it into a program so they can actually see improvement the same way they are with their back squats or their benches or any of these other movements. And I think it will slowly progress. And then I think 3 is boredom. Like we said, I think that if they're going to I think they're doing a huge disservice if all you're going to do is just go out there and run. I think we could complement that with other things as well to really entertain our minds or do the stuff that we do creatively. Like, if we know that you are trying to like go from couch to 5K, you need to get your feet on the pavement. And if to get your feet on the pavement and you can't see yourself running 3 miles in a row, then get a podcast on, get something on, entertain yourself, where I have a running partner, run intervals together, whatever that looks like. But just to say you can't do it because you don't like it is a terrible excuse.
Yeah, just picking on that, boredom point, we do a great job at, playing something audio-wise, and the term that I learned it from is you're developing your body in the cardio. At the same time, you're developing your mind with what you're listening, what you're doing up top. And, it's killing 2 birds, 1 stone, If you can find whether an audiobook or a podcast that you like to listen to, or maybe the Lifelong Fitness podcast you can listen to when you're outside. It makes it that much doable, and half the time you forget about what the hell you're even doing because you're so locked into developing your mind. You start to forget like, hey, I'm not even getting tired because I'm focused on what's up top, what's going on in the head.
Yeah, and I want to make a distinction between cardio and high interval intensity training because we do a lot of HIIT in here, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a really LSD, long, slow duration, very monotonous, very methodical stuff that, puts us at a heart rate at like 60 to 75 beats or 60 to 75% of our max heart rate, and we just stabilize that for as long as we can, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes. But if anything spikes it above that, then we know the movements that we chosen are not are right for that, or 2, we're doing it too fast or too heavy, and then that's where it's time to simmer down.
And we were doing a little research earlier on that. They call that the fat burning zone.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people think it's so good for them, because they think if they can find themselves in there and train in that pathway for a really long time, then they're going to burn fat. And as we explained on earlier podcasts, like, training's just half the battle. We know people got to tighten up what they're putting in their mouths as well, because they'll never get anywhere. It doesn't matter how much of this cardio stuff they do. If they're not tightening up the nutrition, they're never going to see the results they're looking for. But just specifically talking about cardio, that's why I think people hold that near and dear, and why people, possess that as such a great trait to have in somebody. When you look at them and they're marathon runners and they're like, wow, they got great cardio, they got great endurance, and we're like, that's a very small portion of the endurance community of fitness, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I think it's make clear, like, those guys are great runners and they train, but that's not true elite fitness, and really being clear about that.
Yeah, no, the term for it, what I heard a lot, in fitness is cardio bunnies. That's good. That's all they do. That's the only thing they focus on. there's people that are runners. They love running. You know, they don't want to come near a weight, and it's unfortunate because, I mean, okay, your endurance is getting good. You know, the point of this podcast isn't try to convince the listeners to turn to a cardio bunny. You know, but it's like, you know, it's an important aspect of fitness. But, you know, just as important as the weight training and the gymnastics and, you know, just being well-rounded, the nutrition.
Yeah, and I think that if we can sell that idea here, I mean, we try to sell it with Running Week, where we're getting people to, you know, to just help us entertain this combo for a week about how important it is, and here's some creative ways you can do that. And we try to get as creative as possible with how we're implementing endurance training into our own program. But once a month is not going to do anything, and when we program longer endurance days throughout the month, we really hope that people, you know, come to those classes to really get the benefits of it, versus like someone saying, I just don't like that workout. What they're really saying is, I suck at that, I'm not good at those things, and I don't want to touch it.
No, and that's good why we make a whole week out of it. You know, running is a skill, and I gotta admit, you know, straightforward, I didn't consider it a skill until I started coming here. You know, I thought running, hey, you just move from A to B. You know, there's no technique to it, you just move. Who the hell can't run? You know,
yeah, that's
but
good.
Sure enough, like, you know, there's way more to it. There's way more to the technique, and if the technique's not there, you know, chances are you could develop knee pain and stuff like that, to where eventually you won't be able to run because you're not doing it correctly. Just like, you know, any faulty technique in any type of fitness aspect, if you're not doing it correctly, it could lead to injury, you know. But yeah, I want to say that if people started focusing on their running technique just like they're trying to perfect their snatch or their squat or whatever,
they'd enjoy it more.
They'd enjoy it much more, and it feels better, you know, it feels better. So I think that's a great takeaway, is the fact that running is a skill. It is a skill. You have to try to develop this skill just like you're trying to perfect technique on anything else in weightlifting or anything else.
Yep. And I took a course about 4 years ago, maybe 5 now, called Pose Running, and that's all they sold. They sold the idea that the best runners in the world mimic a pose naturally, and we're just trying to mechanize what they're already doing. And here's the positions we should find our athletes in, here's how we should put them in, here's what it should look like, and if it doesn't look like that, then they're doing it wrong. And that was the epiphany I had as well. It's like, wow, like I've been spending more money on, or more time spending on deadlifts and back squats, and not enough time on the form of running. Yeah. So what does that look like? So when we're looking at developing workouts for cardio, what would be a go-to workout for you that you could do every week and feel like you're getting improvements? Your cardiovascular system is improving because of workouts like these.
You mean like duration, type of movements?
Anything.
You know, I got my personal favorite movements wise. You know, I like rowing somewhat. I like getting on the airdyne, and I'd say the more complexity between the variations on all of them put together, kind of like, you know, going back to our first point, is that little spice to it, you know. And then I also got a unique form of cardio that you've known I've been doing for a while, which is the lunges. You know, I like to kind of consider it where strength and cardio meet at that midpoint, which is faster pace, longer duration walking lunges. And, you know, those are when I throw on the podcast or whatnot. But if I were to pick one type of cardio to do, I'd say either lunges. I like double unders because they're a little more skill. Basically, the more variations, the better. Maybe get a triplet going of 3 of those, kind of like what we did today. What are some of your go-tos?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to recommend. When I think about movements like that are going to help me get 30, 40 minutes in, it has to be stuff that I don't have to think about. I don't have to grunt about. It's just do the work, but it's simplistic in nature. So rowing is great. I love rowing because it's just so light on the joints. I never come off a row feeling like my knees are going to blow like I do with running sometimes. A ski erg in here, I really love. The airdynes are great. Any of those things, put together. And usually I try just to get off that monotony of that single structure, single motion. I try to put in a body weight there of some kind, just to kind of get off of seated or getting stuck in that machine for too long, because those are all really, outside of running, those are all machines. And so I want to get off that for a second, try something else, go lunge 100 meters, come back and do it again. But like you said, it's so simple in nature that I don't have to think about it.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the gymnastics movement, throwing that body weight thing in there, squats are a great one, air squats.
Yep.
You can kind of supplement that into any types of cardio. Throw some squats in there, It's great. It can decompress your lower back, get the hips and ankles, warmed up. But like you said, kind of switch it up from just getting off the rower for a little bit, getting off the air down for a little bit. Another one that we haven't mentioned that you can kind of do, which we do sometimes in group programming, is a faster paced farmer's carry.
Ooh, that's really good.
That kind of keeps it fresh. It gets the forearms, works on the grip a little bit, and it kind of comes just back to the functionality. We're trying to work as many things as we can during that time. We're trying to get our biggest bang for our buck during that time. It's kind of just comes down to, the farmer's carry, the forearms. You're getting that heart rate up because you're at a fast pace.
Yep.
I just did earlier was took my shirt off, getting a little tan.
Yeah.
It's like
you're getting best of both worlds. You're out there too. Light prowler pushes.
That's a good one.
Plated overhead walks. Just like after something that got your heart rate up a little bit and trying to maintain that really puts a little bit more focus on your breath. Any of those things, man.
Yeah, and then another good one, which we kind of didn't really get into, is you can do cardio as almost like an active rest day. If you're feeling pretty beat up after a heavy weightlifting day,
flush the system,
flush it out.
That's really good.
Flush it out. Come in. It took us a little bit while to get going earlier. We felt beat up from some of the heavier training we did earlier in the week. So it's like, but once we got moving a little bit, like we feel night and day. It kind of flushes out all that lactic acid that's built up in your body. And not only can you do it as a recovery day, but you can do it as a cool down.
Yeah.
You can do it as a cool down, just gradually, get out of the groove, but just kind of flush everything out your system.
Those are great ideas. So we're using it as an active recovery day. We can use it as a pre-WOD. You move a lot, 15, 20 minutes, and you're sweating. I call it pre-sweat. You're sweating before you're actually supposed to be sweating. So I love that. And then post-WOD as well, instead of just getting a break and dipping out. The other thing is important to think is that, and it goes right back to active recovery days. You shouldn't feel completely obliterated when you're done. If you have to lay down for 10 minutes, you went too hard. That's not what we're looking for. We're talking about, man, you almost feel a little refreshed almost having to move like that, or you feel a lot better because of it. That's what we want to get out of those days. It's not 21-15-9, bat yourself in the face.
Nah, yeah.
And take 10 minutes to come back to reality. That's not what these days are meant for.
Yeah, and then it just comes down to, if you set yourself an active recovery day, commit to that and do that. Don't come in here, get on the air don, attempting to do maybe a nice slow 15-20 minute piece,
and then you're sprinting,
and then you're sprinting, and it's kind of defeating the purpose on what you planned ahead.
Cool. So if we can summarize that in a couple sentences, what would you say?
I'd say there's multiple, purposes on, how to get your cardio in, why to get your cardio in, and, you kind of just got to align it with your goals, and where you want to get to, and then apply it accordingly.
Yeah, mine would be making a distinction between your cardio days and your HIIT days. The other is to, again, get more creative with the type of stuff that we're doing, that we're implementing into those days. Test some stuff out. You'll find out maybe that's too exhausting. That's too much work for what I'm trying to get out of this day. Or you experiment with something else that you think is maybe a little too far out of the box, and you realize, like the overhead walks, that it's a perfect fit. So
yeah, you find something that's actually fun, entertaining, and something that will bring you back to the gym, looking forward to do that again.
Yeah, and if you're struggling in HIIT workouts past 20 minutes, we know that it's a weakness in the cardiovascular system. You could put some energy into it the way that we're talking about. You're going to see some great improvement, some great transfer into some of this higher intensity stuff.
Cool, man.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep, we'll catch you next time.